I think that they're going to hold. Like they're really trying to fix what was out of control. Where Tiff Macklem stands is he is just going to wait to see a very, very strong trend before he brings it down.
Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Tom Storey Show. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Steve, give me a thumbs up because I actually remembered to say it. If you're watching on the audio platforms, I hope you're having a great day. This video, this podcast. Cutting me off in my intro?
We have not had a new Apple review lately. So, review the show. Unless you want to give us less than 5 stars, and then don't review the show. But it's been a little bit since we've had some nice words written on our Apple, and so
the audio listens are like the highest they've ever been. That's been growing pretty nicely, Steve.
Well, I think that's because we probably upload our stuff like on time each week, and it's there. And
yeah, it's
people
just
get to listen.
Slowly growing. You know, we've been doing this podcast now, Steve. This episode, actually, guys, is our 2-year anniversary of the first episode that we posted. So I don't know. This is awesome. Episode, what, 108 maybe? I don't know where we're at exactly. But
110?
Is it 110? Maybe it's 110. Regardless, every Sunday for 2 years, which is pretty crazy. And it's kind of cool that we got another Canadian real estate podcast on the show. So Brooke and Cortez are here from the Canadian Real Estate Homefront. And me and Steve were talking about before, there's a lot of Canadian real estate podcasts we like. There's some we used to like and we're not so sure about anymore. But you guys, we really like. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. That's so
Thanks
nice.
for having us.
Making me feel good this morning.
So I know all of us, we do this as a secondary hobby. It's a business driver. We have fun with it. We like to talk about the market, but you're not just podcast hosts. So Brooke, do you want to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah. So my name's Brooke. As you just said, Brooke Hicks. I am a realtor in the Halton and Hamilton area. I have a team. Cortez and I actually work together. He runs a lot of the podcast side of the business, and then I run the girls on the team. We have 7 with us right now. So we have expanded in the last year. So trying to navigate that has kept me pretty busy. But like you said, this is definitely a hobby, just trying to give as much free education as possible, because I find that, especially as markets change, there's always a lot of conflicting information. So we try to be as, info driven as possible. Yeah. That's what led us here, I guess.
Nice. And Cortez, little background on you.
Yeah, same thing. I'm just like a realtor, but I love economics and I'm a big nerd with that kind of stuff. And me and Brooke started our podcast like about a year ago. So it hasn't been too long. I actually a bit of a fanboy of you guys. I took your course like 2 years ago in December.
There we go.
I started making TikTok videos, and then Brooke saw that. Me and Brooke kind of started chatting a bit, and then she was starting a podcast, and then she's like, "Do this with me." And yeah, next thing we knew, we had a nice little following, and it's been a good business driver. And like Brooke said, we just give out free content so people can hopefully make better decisions on the real estate purchases. And like Tom says, save people from 3-star experiences. So.
Yeah. When I had the idea, I was like, I want to start a podcast. And then I had Cortez on as one of the first guests. And then he went on this whole economic tangent. And I'm like, hello, I'm the host. Don't outsmart the host. It's my show. But anyways, after that, I'm like, you add a lot of value. Let's do this together. And we don't see a lot of the guy-girl duos. So sometimes with our banter back and forth,
I think that's actually a really good point. Me and Steve have talked about this a lot, where like we think there's such a massive opportunity for women in the real estate space to be online, have an audience, and for whatever reason, it seems to be male dominated. Did you notice that before you got into it?
Yeah, for sure. Like I find that in the past couple of years, as social media has really taken off, and every realtor is posting reels and listing videos and all that good stuff, I see them a lot with women doing it as well. However, the good podcasts that people really trust and listen to are male dominated. So I don't know if it's a trust thing, but the women podcasts that speak about real estate, it's almost like, I don't know if it's a trust thing or they just feel more comfortable because of how experienced your guys' podcast is. But sometimes Cortez and I have completely different opinions, which I think some people actually take to, because you'll never please everyone. So
no, we learn that every week in our comments. We learn that every single week. And you guys, we'll get to market in a second here, but I just have a few more questions. So you've taken a bit of a different approach where, like, obviously you guys put it out on audio. You have the YouTube channel, which is growing a lot. You guys are doing a great job. But your Instagram, like, we don't even post anything on Instagram for the podcast. Your Instagram's like got a crazy following. Your videos get like 1 million views sometimes. Yeah. That's just taking what you do, taking the short form clips and uploading just a ton of them?
Yeah, Cortez.
I can speak on that. Yeah. I actually use a software called Opus Pro. Yeah. And it's actually AI generated. So I go in because I'm a bit of a perfectionist and I tweak it. I move the writing and I add B-roll and stuff like that. But yeah, that's what's really taken our podcast off, was the short form. And even when we got into it, like, the big thing that we talked about was no one's doing short form stuff. Like, you know, attention is so like delicate these days. So the 3-second hook is always what I talk to people about. Like, even what we're trying to do in our listing videos now is just be different. So we just had a home where, you know, me and Brooke walked up to it and it was like, wow, I wonder what it'd be like to live here. And it was one of our listings. And it just takes like the person through the whole home. It's like me and Brooke, like as if we were a couple, and then it comes back out and it's like, I guess it won't be us, but it'll be someone's home. Right. But you know how realtors start everything, like, you know, I'm Tom Storey from Royal LePage Signature.
Yeah, you've lost my attention.
You lose people. Yeah. So what we try to do is just, you know, have a hook, talk about politics, talk about anything you could imagine, and try and get eyes on us. And it's worked so far. So,
Steve, have you ever done listing videos where you're like outside the house back in the day? Maybe.
No.
You just be like, this is the house, come by it.
Yeah.
Remember when, actually probably just before COVID, but definitely during COVID, there was like those virtual open houses, and people would just like host an open house and awkwardly walk around the property. I did a few of those. Those are probably still out there on the channel.
Oh, you were like live streaming it.
Yeah. We would do that live stream on Instagram.
During COVID, getting it out there. People weren't comfortable coming to see it in person.
We sold a whole bunch 100% virtually, but that's gone away now. Like, not that people don't care about the virtual tours, but they want the floor plans and the photos. That's what we found is like the most important factor for listings now. Okay, let's get into some fun stuff. I want to read you a headline. The dirty secret of the housing crisis. Homeowners like high prices. Doesn't seem like a secret to me. It seems pretty obvious. And we've talked about this in previous episodes, but I want to keep going on this because I think there's more to talk about. It's like right now, 66% of Canadians own their home. We talk about a housing crisis. We talk about we need housing prices to come down. It needs to be more affordable. We need to give people a chance. In certain markets in Canada, housing is very much affordable, but people just don't want to move there. So do you see anything that changes here over the next decade? Or are we just going to keep complaining like we've always kept complaining, even if things drop off a little bit? Because a lot of Canadians own their home. So Brooke, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, so that's the thing about, you know, when we hear this narrative, it is a lot of the our age, right? The people trying to get into their first home. And I think that, you know, the dream of home ownership was just presented to us when we were young. And then I think our dreams kind of got crashed and burned now that it becomes, you know, unattainable when we actually try to do it. You know, you go to school and you buy a house just like our parents did. So the people our age, I think we're among the first generation that actually is not going that way in life, where we get our education, we get married, we buy a house, we have kids, and then we retire and downsize, right? In terms of the next 10 years, I mean, I always say that Canada and Canadians' wealth, a lot of it is tied up in real estate, right? So I think that if house prices came down a substantial amount, there could be an effect that's even worse than, oh, that's good for the people that want to buy the house, right? It's just like the stock market crashing in the States, right? A lot of the states, the people that live there, their money is tied up in the stock market. Stock market crashes, people lose their livelihoods, and that's all of a sudden more of a crisis than if, houses became more affordable. Obviously, there's some things that, if we change our political parties and keep moving toward, removing red tape and all of that, that could help things a little bit. But, I say we trade sideways and have these little ups and downs, but I don't see it being anywhere close to, what people want, like the 500K home that looks like, the Texas ones that people share, like what you could buy for fun. That's never going to happen.
Cortez, do you think if we change the leadership of this country that home prices will be impacted directly, or is it they just don't have that type of actual power?
I think they do have that power if you stop, if you pull back on immigration. I think that it would help a lot. I don't know the right answer to this, and I don't want to set up anyone, but when you let 1.2 million people into a country in 1 year and you already have a supply issue, when you look at each province, they're growing by like 3-4% in a single year, and you're already at a housing deficit. I mean, supply and demand just does its thing at that point. Not to mention that Canada has a lot of investment dollars in Canadian real estate, because there hasn't been a lot of like Canadian companies that you want to put money into. Like if you were in the States, for example, you can buy American companies, but it's a bit, you have to transfer your dollars into American dollars, and you have to buy Microsoft or Apple, or you could just buy the S&P 500. But where a lot of people have done really well is they take a HELOC on their home, or they save money instead of dollar cost averaging in the stock market, and they buy that condo pre-con, or they, buy an investment property and they just let it sit there and do its thing. Today's world, that doesn't work as well, obviously, because interest rates are high, but it worked for so long where, what people don't really see is that when you put down 5% or 10%, but the house appreciates 5 or 10%, your actual equity that you put into it appreciates a lot more because you're leveraged. So that's where a lot of investors see attraction, right? Like you can get leverage in the stock market, but you can get your call option can go against you really fast. Versus the housing market, well, the bank's like, oh, even if it went against you, as long as you can carry it, they're like, oh, we'll take you on for another term. Like, why not? So I don't know. I think it's going to take many, many years for Canadian real estate to come back to reality. But like you said, more people own homes in this country than not, and they don't want to see that devalue. So unless there's some sort of economic shock where Canada can't control it, the banks can't control it, and the government can't control it, kind of like what happened in 2008, then I think that the market will trade more sideways versus seeing a huge increase or a huge decrease, especially in Toronto and Vancouver.
In Toronto and Vancouver, it's like the major cities of the country, right? Because when we hear this narrative, it's mainly these cities, like you were saying. Canada is affordable if you want to go to the eastern provinces, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and all of those other places outside of the main cities of Canada. So if you go to London, England, if you go to Los Angeles, California, if you go to Paris, France, are you going to expect to buy a house as a first-time buyer? No, but you're going to go into the suburban areas because their infrastructure has allowed for lots of cities, so that buying in Paris doesn't need to be your goal. Buying a house is a possibility for them because they have that infrastructure and these sub-cities. Whereas the GTA, Canada has so much land that we haven't built on, right? So it's about, maybe people won't ever be able to buy in Toronto as their first house, right? The typical earner, just like they wouldn't be able to buy in any other major city of the country. But there's other infrastructure built. And I think that immigration and that infrastructure building up these cities needs to kind of be in line if we don't want to shock the homeowners and losing their livelihoods, but also allow for people to come in and maybe be able to afford something.
Steve, has PP said that he's going to slow immigration if he gets elected? I feel like he hasn't at this point. He's kind of like walking around the issue, because we all talk about this all the time. And it's a very clear, direct correlation, whether it's increasing rental prices at the beginning or eventually in the next 5 years, they're going to be buying houses. And if we look, you just said, Cortez, 1.2 million people. And even if they only buy in the next 5 years, and Steve, I'm stealing this from a comment, you responded to somebody, It's like, okay, so 2028 is going to be a ripping market because they're all about to buy. Like, where's this go, Steve?
Where's it go? Who the heck knows? I mean, they're not talking about, the conservatives aren't talking about reducing house prices. They're not talking about anything except axe the tax. They're not talking about reducing immigration, even though I think they likely would. They're not even really talking about reducing a lot of government spending, even though I think they would. All of that stuff would definitely help, but that is actually the stat on PRs is the average new permanent resident to Canada does not buy a property for 5 years. Now, that doesn't really line up with what I've been doing for the last 2 years, because almost everybody I'm selling property to in the last 2 years is a permanent resident. And they just got their card recently. So they're people coming from other countries with money, coming from Mexico, coming from India, coming from wherever. But if we let in 1.2 million people in the last 12 months, and I think it's slightly off of those numbers now, that was probably old numbers. In 5 years from now, if the majority of those people are buying, it's going to look like a whole different thing. So that we had BMO's chief economist on, and he was like, this is the year that I'm worried about. 2024 is actually the worry year. He's like, 2026, I think we're going to go into absolute lunacy again. Mm-hmm. And there's a good chance that the numbers are pointing towards that, because these people will start to get their feet under them a little bit more. Even the guys that are struggling, because here's a thought I had, please don't cancel me for it. How come I'm not seeing any people that I would consider to be people maybe I grew up with or the generation under me driving Uber or driving Skip the Dishes? I don't think the people that are raised here have done the things and really sacrificed and worked those extra hours to put themselves in a better position. I think those people that are immigrating from another place are doing those things. And those people are going to drive this market into the future. I just don't see it turning around in any meaningful way in the next little bit.
Interesting. I think Pierre Poilievre, why he doesn't talk about immigration much is because I've seen a stat that the Indian population votes for Trudeau and is very favorable for Trudeau. So I think it's more of a political move on his part not to talk about it. But like we have seen the immigration minister talk about reducing international students, getting rid of these diploma mills, and also reducing the amount of non-permanent residents coming into Canada. So I think that will have an effect. Like I'm on Twitter, so I saw today that because of the pullback from India with students, that market is getting killed because it doesn't cash flow at all anymore. Like now there's not 25 students to throw into a basement or something ridiculous. I know I'm giving an outlier example, but
you're saying like, was it like mortgage applications in Brampton or something are way down because no one's buying it because the numbers don't work anymore? Was that the tweet? I think I saw, you know what? I think I saw you repost that or something.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. I think I did. Yeah. I think I put that on our Instagram today. Yeah. So, I think it's going to be interesting. I hate predicting stuff because like everyone's always wrong, but it's a fun thing to do and people
except
love
for
it.
Steve. Steve's always right.
Never.
Steve's always right.
This episode is brought to you by Realty Ninja. Real estate agents, listen up. Realty Ninja has created over 9,000 Canadian real estate websites, and they are no joke. I've been using Realty Ninja in my business since they were a small little startup in North Vancouver. Tiny, dusty little office with old leather couch and all. But look at the ninjas now. Realty Ninja is the go-to platform for real estate agents in Canada. Websites are no longer a nice to have. They are a must. Your clients expect you to feature their listings in the best light possible. They expect you to go with Realty Ninja. The backbone of my real estate business is my website. I wouldn't pick any other company to host my website other than Realty Ninja. Don't believe me? Go to my website. Check it out right now. Go to krproperties.ca and you will see that it's powered by Realty Ninja and has been for over a decade. They have all of the features I need to grow my business year after year, including lead capture, mobile-friendly design, built-in SEO, and so much more. The best part of Realty Ninja is it's totally free to sign up, no credit card is required, and you only pay when you are ready to launch your new Realty Ninja website. And no, that's not it. Sign up today at realtyninja.com/Tom and you will receive 20%, yes, 20% off of your entire first year when using Realty Ninja to host your real estate website. Their templates are super easy to work with yourself, or you can have the ninjas design something for you like I did. Not only is Realty Ninja the best product on the market, but it's also affordable. Listeners of this show know that I am as cheap as they come, and I've been using Realty Ninja for well over a decade now. Start your free trial today, and when you launch, save 20% using our link in the description below. And let Realty Ninja help you take your real estate business to the next level. And now, back to the podcast.
But yeah, I don't know where this market's going. I don't know. I look at median incomes versus house pricing, and that scares me. I look at the productivity of this country, the negative GDP per capita, who's building businesses, who's creating jobs, and it's not a lot. So
right. Brooke, on the actual, like, let's take this down to the ground level now. You know, you're meeting with buyers and sellers every single day. I know your team's very productive. What are they saying? Like, are the sellers selling because like they have to sell and interest rates are killing them? Why are buyers buying? I know you're very investment focused as well. Like, what's the general theme of the conversations?
Yeah, so the buyers that I have that had just come to me as a buyer and haven't already sold, a lot of them, they follow what I put out and say, the house prices have come down a substantial amount since 2 years ago. And a lot of where I work does have that multi-unit, like a duplex, for example.
And you're mostly west, by the way, right? Just to clarify where you work.
West, like Oakville to Hamilton. Hamilton is where my investment properties are. And that's where I use a lot of the properties there to educate first-time investors when, they're not ready to jump to the fourplex or more, but you want to start with a duplex. So with these high interest rates, obviously prices have come down substantially from where these duplexes were. And if you can get the multiple rents and cover just even break even right now, while the prices are so much lower than they used to be, as the rates come down, not only is your cash flow going to increase, but so is the the value of your home. So I do have a lot of calls set up regarding, getting into an investment while prices are at this low, even though interest rates are high, if we can make the numbers work. A couple first-time buyers, a lot of people just, on the sidelines. Like, we talk a lot about what drives buyers to get into the market and what holds them back. And funny enough, interest rates wasn't the highest on the poll. It's economic uncertainty, which keeps people on the sidelines. So even though, somebody may be able to afford it with these interest rates, it's the idea of not really knowing what's going on, maybe waiting for another Bank of Canada announcement and seeing where things are at before jumping in. And then in regards to my sellers, it's actually the pool of sellers that I have right now. Like a lot of them, a couple of them have to sell. Okay. They have lenders that they're just defaulting, like they have to sell. And this is their primary residence.
Okay. So it's not even an investment. This is their actual house.
They bought before me. So I've taken them on now, and we're going to have to sell some of them. I try to, when a seller comes to me in a loss situation, we try to bridge it as much as possible. But I have a couple of those, which is an unfortunate, makes my job not as cheery, right? And then I have a couple sellers now that they're in a larger house. They don't necessarily need to downsize yet, right? Their kids still live with them, but they are, approaching the years they go to university, but their mortgage renewals are coming up and their mortgage is going to double. So they're saying, nah, let's downsize now.
Where are they going? Oh, they're downsizing to something smaller.
Yeah. So this specific example, like a 3,000 square foot home in Milton is where their family lives. And it's about 1.5 is what we sold it for. Their mortgage is about, I think it was 600, they said, and it's doubling. Okay. So even just the mortgage payment alone doubling, they're like, So now they're looking to sell that, buy for $1 million, which we actually did last night. We ended up buying for 1.1. So their mortgage will decrease. Their mortgage will be basically nothing, but that'll save them the shock of, a $2,000 payment going to $4,500. And, when your incomes don't increase, then that is a shock. Like $2,000 a month, it's a lot of money if you're, working your same salary that hasn't really changed much in the last however many years.
We're doing a lot of that right now. We're doing a lot of people that are just like, you know what? I don't really need this house anymore. And it's definitely not worth an extra $1,800 a month. So let's just downsize.
Mm-hmm.
But isn't it interesting though? And I realize what I'm about to say is realtoring this very hard, but like the bad position that they were put in, that their mortgage could have gone up double in what they're paying on a monthly basis. But the house that they've owned for X many years gave them the ability to then just get rid of their mortgage, still have a house paid off free and clear. Right. If they had never got in and just rented this entire time, it'd be a much worse position, right? So it's like it's like what? It's like, just out of curiosity. So they own that original Milton house that you sold for 1.5 or 1.6 for how long? How long did they own that for?
They owned it for like 18-ish years. Something. So
like,
like that. They must have refinanced, which I don't know because their mortgage was high if they had bought that long ago. So there was a mortgage that wouldn't have been from when they bought it. You're absolutely right. So that situation was more like, okay, we're downsizing. This is exciting, right? But there is a lot of pain in the market, especially with, some of the sellers selling tenanted properties. Single families will not carry well with tenants, and having to move the tenants or cash for keys, and the tenants paying undervalue. Like there's a lot of working some things out to hopefully put a seller in a better position than what's in front of them and navigate that. So a lot more boots on the ground than the old days of putting the sign in the lawn.
Cortez, I want your opinion on sellers as well, but I just want to share something because I literally just ran these numbers. So I was always curious because when people would come to me and say, hey, Tom, I got a condo, I want to sell it, but it's tenanted, what difference does that make? And we always know it's harder to sell tenanted properties, but I never actually run the numbers. So I went back and I took from March 1st, every single by contract date, new listing in downtown Toronto. And then I separated it into occupancy status. So vacant, tenanted, owner occupied. Now, I would say these new listings, a lot of them were the same properties being listed several times. So the actual percentage is higher once you break it down. But owner occupied had a 25% success rate of selling, and truthfully is probably 45-50 when you take out the relists. Vacant was 19%, which was lower. And I simply think it's because it's these newer condos. That's why they're vacant. They cost more. There's more competition. So it takes longer. Tenanted was 13% success rate to sell. We're not even talking about how much lower it would sell for. Owner occupied versus tenant, just what the numbers are saying, your chances of selling are 50% less being tenanted versus being owner occupied. And I'm like, wow. I always kind of thought this, but I didn't have numbers to back it up. So paying that cash for keys, whether it's 2 months rent, 3 months rent, whatever it is, I think is worth it just to sell.
It is, yeah. And the difference of sale price too, right? Like there's, tenant belongings, whether they have an animal. It's just like seeing other people's quote unquote stuff. Like if owner occupied, you're going to clear things more than likely a tenant would. Not saying all tenants leave their stuff out. Like there's a lot of I have great tenants, but it's not as warm walking into somebody else's house as an owner occupied likely would follow the suggestions more of the realtor. So even the price, the $10K for cash for keys, you're going to likely sell $10K higher or more.
Oh, I think more. And it's not, this has nothing actually to do really about the actual tenants. Cause there's some tenants are great and the place looks amazing. It's just the perception of buying a tenanted property. Well, what if they don't move? It means that closing's longer. I have to move into this property. If I'm an investor, why do I want to assume a tenant that's in rent control? There's all these different factors, right? But I just thought those numbers were interesting, where now at least I can have data to go to people and say, hey, it's worth paying this if the tenant will sign the N11 to leave early. Cortez, for you with clients right now, we had talked about offline, and again, we're not a doom and gloom podcast. Me and Steve tried to look at all sides of this, but I think
we are a pumper podcast.
We're a pump podcast. I forgot. I know you said you a few scenarios that have happened that you wanted to share with sellers.
Yeah. I think, there's two sides of the story, right? Like, I think you have the seller side and the buyer side. The seller side right now, it just depends on your motive. Like, I've helped people, take a big loss on their property because they just weren't happy. Sure. And when they bought the home, they bought it with an agent who said, just go to your max. It was, during the peak of the market. So, it's data, it's on House Sigma, but it's probably, they lost about $200K just from their original purchase price. Ooh. We had another one that was a B lender was forcing a sale, basically called me, what do we got to do to sell it? It was it sold about $50K under what they bought it for. Okay. And that was about a year ago. So, when you take in fees and stuff like that, it's going to be more. In terms of buyers, like, what do I say to buyers right now? It depends on like what you're looking for. Like, if you're looking for alpha, if you're looking for insane returns, it's probably not going to be buying a house in Milton for 1.5 million. Like, you're probably not going to see, like, that house was probably sold by Mattamy at 400K. You're probably not seeing that house 3x to 4.5 million in the next 10 years. Like, that's probably just never going to happen. But what I tell people, and buyers, I'm like, look, if you're looking for something where you can make improvements, you're not going to get kicked out, you're going to have principal pay down, and I think that housing will at least keep up with inflation, so you're going to have a good store of value, then buying a home is an awesome idea. Like, if you're looking for crazy returns and you want to be a multimillionaire like your parents were in 20 years, I don't know if it's going to be there just based off incomes. But that's the worst case scenario. So the best case scenario is that, you hit 7% 1 year or 8% on leveraged money, and you do pretty well for yourself. But I think buyers are looking for these home runs, at least, my age buyers, that their parents got. And that's probably not going to happen.
But is a single or a double still going to feel good?
Yeah, I think
probably,
so.
Right?
But,
no, but here's the thing though. Their parents got a home run over 30 years. Their parents didn't get a home run over 1 year, right? And so
but if you
like
look at it,
stock,
the house would be worth $30 million. Like, you know what I mean?
100%.
You think? Yeah, I don't think that's ever going to happen.
That's what they've said about every home price ever.
Well, you look at New York City,
$30 million. Like, that would be insanity. Yeah.
A condo costs $30 million in New York City. Does Toronto become that? Is the question, right?
No, it can't. It can't become that because New York's GDP is bigger than all of Canada. New York is the economic hub of the world. Toronto isn't. I hate to break it to people.
Toronto's way behind. I'm not saying anytime soon, but we're talking Toronto. Same timelines as how.
Yeah, I just can't see a house. I can't see a semi-detached house that Tom's selling.
Okay,
for
let me rephrase it. Let me rephrase it for you. Do you think the devaluation of currency will continue to happen over time?
I do. Yes, I think that the Canadian dollar, unless it does something where, we become more productive, it will devalue.
Okay, so then if you end up with a house, say, let's just think of a house. Maybe it's got a basement apartment in it or something like that. And then you add more people, and that won't happen forever either. There won't be just continuously adding more people. Populations, like if it wasn't for immigration, we would be negative population growth anyway. Yeah. But currently, given the scenario, there's probably more people added per household. So the dollar's devaluing, but the value of the home to the people in it is going up because there's just more people that have to live within that area. And that's densification, whether or not you cut it into, 200 square foot units, or you have a 4,000 square foot house with 4 families living in it, whatever that is. So I know it sounds silly to think that the average house might be worth $10 million in 20 years, but it actually might. And it's just a function of how the economics works. And people hate to hear that because they still picture themselves making $30,000 a year, $40,000, $50,000 a year in 20 years. But that's really not the case. This is my old time geezer moment for the podcast, Tom. I apologize.
You get one per episode.
My first job was $4 an hour minimum wage. Right? So
Was it really?
Yes.
You're that old?
Yes, $4 an hour minimum wage. Now, in this province anyway, it's $17.50 or something. So it's gone in, I'm going to say I've been working for, what did I get that? 14 years old. So let's say it's 30 years. Over 30 years, minimum wage has 4x'd.
For tenant landlord, or homeowner insurance policies, go to squareone.ca/The Tom Storey Show. Use the link in the description. Save $20 when you start your free quote right now.
It's not crazy.
Minimum wage, but if you look at median household income, it hasn't 4x'd. So it's about 10x right now, the median income to the median price of a home in Canada. So if the median price of a home in Canada 10x's and your income 10x's, you're exponentially growing the price of the house and the leverage on the house, which leverage is scary, versus what we could see wages go to. That's only my point. Like I think houses could go up, but maybe crazier things have happened. But to think of a semi-detached home in Toronto being worth 10 million in 20 years,
to think of it is great. To think of it is crazy. But eventually, for instance, first time I went to Mexico, you got a peso, and there was so many zeros on the end of that bill that the second time I went, they just cut off like the last 7 zeros. They were like, okay, we don't count those zeros anymore.
So funny.
That's the devaluation of currency.
I once tipped my cab driver $500 thinking it was a 50 because I didn't know. 5,000 pesos, 50,000 pesos. I was like, Jesus. I gave him $500 after.
But it's just, I mean, it will, and that's the part that people don't like to focus. Not to mention all the other stuff. We've gone from a society that was, didn't have access to credit. Now we've got access to credit. And so there's a bunch of people that want to pretend that we're going to live the old ways that we lived after World War II and that's going to continue. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. I think this continued leverage is going to happen. And I think the value of the home remains the same and the inflation continues. Obviously, we want inflation. We want 2%. Apparently, that's where we want to be. So over time, even if you keep all that stuff in check, the money devalues and eventually the properties will be worth a stupid amount of money. A dollar is no longer a dollar, I guess is the way I'm trying to say it, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to continue in the future. So to say, oh, that house isn't worth $1 million. No, $1 million isn't worth $1 million. That house is absolutely worth what those people are going to pay for it for whatever reason. I have investors coming out of the woodwork right now like crazy that are happy to cash flow negative again. Crazy to me.
But if the dollar is devaluing, but the value is staying the same, doesn't it just make it relative?
I think it means you
want
to invest in something that's going to hold its value, and the dollar is going to decline. If you hold cash, I think you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Does anybody know the population of New York City? I'm giving you a pop quiz.
20 million.
Okay, I don't know if that's true or not, but
no.
Manhattan's 8 million,
and the population of the city of Toronto is like 3.5. The actual 416 now, maybe just over 3.
Do you want me to Google?
Okay, no. I'm just the reason why I'm bringing this up is we're talking about these cities, and there was a chart that came out. It said individuals with liquid investable wealth calling them millionaires with liquid investable wealth. And New York was number 1 on that list. And they said they had just under 350,000 people based on a pretty big population. Toronto is number 13 on that list. We have 106,000, but at a much smaller population. So percentage wise, New York might still be ahead of us but there's a lot of people in this city that have money. Steve, are you confused?
That might actually be totally in line.
Okay, so
I'm
sorry.
not good at math.
Well,
but percentage-wise, that might be absolutely perfectly.
We
in line.
haven't confirmed the population, so I don't know exactly. But
we'll
I don't know.
You
know what I like? You know what I like about having you guys on is I had a few bullet points of questions. I haven't even asked you number 1 yet.
Sorry about that.
No, it's awesome. So let's go back. So on June 5th, the Bank of Canada is going to make an announcement. Right now, it looks like 50% of the betting odds are that they're going to cut rates by probably 25 points. Okay, we all know if that were to happen, it doesn't really change anything in terms of mortgage payments, like $15 a month on $500,000. First of all, let's go round table here. Brooke, we'll start with you. What do you think they're going to do? Because making predictions is fun, and we're going to hold you 100% accountable to what you say. And what do you think it's going to mean?
If you are a real estate agent in Ontario, you know that it's your obligation to explain RICO's information guide to your clients. And now TRESAvideo.ca can help make that explanation easier and increase your trust and transparency all at the same time. Tom's team has been using the video that they got from TRESAvideo.ca for a few months now, and both his agents and clients love it. And now exclusively for the month of June, you can use code JUNE50 for $50 off your purchase. So go to TRESAvideo.ca and enter code JUNE50 for a limited time.
I think that they're going to hold.
Okay.
I think that they're still trying to not get ahead of themselves. Like they're really trying to fix what was out of control. And if I think that where Tiff Macklem stands is he's trying to really almost bring everything back from the COVID times when inflation was 8% and not let it like creep up back there. So I don't think he's trying to do this like game where it's okay, we bring it down and then things go up. Okay, now we're going to have to raise it again. I think that he is just going to wait to see a very, very strong trend before he brings it down, because buyers, I hear a lot of buyers saying they're waiting for the rate to come down. We like to poke holes in that because some people don't know that fixed rate doesn't even rely on the Bank of Canada.
A surprisingly big amount of people don't realize that, by the way.
Yeah. But it's just, I think, something that makes them feel safe, that they're waiting for something, and that gives them reason, right? Because again, economic uncertainty. So it's like, okay, they reduced rates. Now I think is my time. And it's just because you follow the masses of rates come down, buyers come out. I think that where the Bank of Canada stands is they're doing massive damage control, and just they don't want this to continue, where if they set a little bit of fuel on the fire,
right,
and then things come up and they're going to have to raise it again. So I think that they'll just hold out, and then we'll see a rate cut toward the end of the year. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Cortez?
Yeah, I think one more hold. I think a cut in July and a cut in the winter. And that's all they'll do this year, 25 basis points each. I know this is just a prediction, but I think that the Canadian economy it's weak. There's no doubt it's weak. And I think that, we got to be mindful of the Federal Reserve in the States and what they do. There's so many different factors. Inflation is coming down, but I think as renewals come up and people's disposable income continues to decline in 2024, 2025, 2026, I actually see unemployment continuing to tick up because businesses, the first thing they do is they cut their staff and they cut the amount of people that work there. Not only that, but the new capital gains rule that Trudeau put in. I listen to a lot of Canadian venture capitalists, and like these guys are like the backbones of creating jobs and creating companies. All these people are fleeing from Canada to the States and to other countries because capital flows where capital gets treated best. And that's kind of my opinion there, is I think that the economy will continue to hurt in the next couple of years because people won't have the money to spend because they have to pay the bank their interest and their new high rates. So
and don't you think
long-winded answer.
And don't you think though that if that were to happen, that means that rates would come down pretty quickly? Like bad economy means rates come down.
That's what people aren't wrapping their heads around, is that if the economy gets bad, then rates fall only when the economy sucks. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing a negative GDP per capita. So to say that like the floodgates are going to open in real estate, I don't think is fully the right thing to say. I think that real estate will get better. Obviously, you're going to have people with capital who have been on the sidelines. But yeah, like look at COVID. Things got so bad because the world shut down and then rates went to zero. So if the same as they cut rates, then we're in a recession, and I think we're in a recession to begin with, to be honest. But
an unofficial recession, maybe.
An unofficial recession, yeah.
Steve, I know you don't think they're going to cut in June, but you're sticking with your July and December, whatever you said.
This is our birthday episode. This is coming out on the 2nd. Announcements on the 5th. Okay.
A few days from now, yeah.
So inflation report came out 2.7. So it went 2.9 this year, 2.8, 2.9, 2.7.
Didn't it get to 3.1 at one point? Didn't it go over 3 and then come back down?
That was last year.
Yeah,
you're right.
Revisions or whatever there was. I don't know what it was. But we're within target, but we're not close enough to 2, I don't think, for them to actually do something about it. They'll wait. I was reading inflation though, and they were like, gas prices were up 7 cents per liter in April over top of March. And I was like, wait, isn't the carbon tax 8.5 cents per liter? So yeah, like this is the issue that they're going to continuously fight, right?
Yeah.
They're going to have this fight of we're getting a lot of our inflation right now is obviously shelter costs, which we've talked about. Now that's going to stop at some point because at one point, when was it last year? Was it July was the last upturn to get us to 5%? So at some point that shelter inflation becomes zero when you get to 5%, right? Year over year. That's
You're right.
Calculated, right? So I think this number is actually going to come down really quickly at one point. I think the inflation number is actually going to tank super quick. And then you will see that change. The question is, does it happen this year? I agree with Cortez. Like you're probably going to see one. They're probably going to go, just a little bit, just a little July, and then see what happens for a bit. And then we'll be talking September, October, maybe, or whenever those announcements are to see the next one, maybe. And then I actually think they don't need to be more than 2% above inflation with interest rates. So if inflation is 2.5%, then they don't need to be above 4.5% overnight rate. Doesn't need to be there anymore. So now you're actually crushing the economy on purpose. The question is, why do they wait so long to know that this thing is coming and then not have a little bit of forward guidance and say, okay, how are we going to deal with this? Because if this trend continues too long, that inflation number is just going to continue to go like this. And at one point, it's actually probably going to go really far down. And it could go into deflation very quickly. And apparently, for some reason, deflation is a bad thing. I would like my money to go further, but apparently it's not a good thing.
I got a quick question for each of you. So we've all been selling real estate for a period of time. Generally, how would you say this market that you're currently working in your market is? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it ugly? What's the general from your career and what you've experienced before, Brooke?
I've like this month specifically has been way quieter than the like January up until I guess April. So I found that May is pretty slow, like in terms of showings, like showing count on my listings are down for sure. Things are still selling, like things are still moving, but days on market is up. Like I follow the month over month analytics of my markets of, okay, how many days on market before it sells, how many offers in that city, how many new listings. So I'm seeing an uptick in listings for sure, and showing activity down. And that happens when there's more supply. Obviously your showing will be down. I have a couple great listings priced well, and they're not getting a crazy ton of showings. Like I still do think they'll sell. It's just back to those days where, we have a 90-day listing agreement because that's normal.
For a reason. There's probably a reason it started at that.
Nobody just randomly created 90 days, but we are so used to us not needing the 90 days. But now it comes back to being creative, doing those types of videos, like really going full tilt on staging, cleaning, gardening, all of that good stuff. Because as more listings come out, which they are, and it's a spring market, that was expected, buyers become more picky. And if they don't have cheap money, then they're going to be even more pickier. Right. So it's slow this month. This year, I'm still like year over year, pretty steady in terms of my numbers and my business. But like the past couple of weeks, I'm like, oh, where is everyone?
They're waiting for the rate drop. Cortez, for you, would you classify this market as a good market, bad market, horrendous market, really good? Like, where would you put it on a ranking system?
I think it's like the perfect market. It's not too crazy.
The Goldilocks market.
I don't like going into offer presentations with clients with stone foundations and telling them, I want you to do an inspection, but there's going to be 20 offers. So if you really want the house, you're not going to be able to, I hate that. It's like the worst feeling ever. I know you can get a pre-inspection or whatever, and hopefully the seller has one, but it's not a fun time to be in. And then it's just adjusting your seller's expectations. Like, hey, look, these, someone messaged me the other day. They have a house for sale in another province, and they're like, it's not selling. What do I do? I'm like, well, first you got to talk to a realtor. But I'm like, how long have you been on the market? They're like, not even a month. And I was like, that's normal.
Right.
So yeah, it's just setting expectations for people. And like Brooke said, like we go on the Broker Bay, the back end there.
Yep.
And just look
you can
at,
see the graphs, right?
Yeah.
You can see the new listings. Showings are down 25%. Offers are down 25%. Days on market before sold is up. So you're having longer days on market. You have more listings, less showings, and less offers. And as we go into the summer, things slow down. So I think it's experience that tells you things, right? Like 2017 was bananas. I think it was 2016 for you, Steve, because they implemented the foreign buyer tax, and then they all came running to Toronto. And then people were losing money back then too. It's just how long can you stay in the game for is kind of the important thing in real estate.
And Steve, you've been selling real estate since 1942, and in all your years, like where do you rank? So you're
hold that thought, Tom. I want to make a public service announcement because Cortez just touched on something that I want to make very public. If you are under contract with another agent, please do not phone me.
Yeah.
If
it's happening a lot.
Trust your agent.
It's happening a lot. Yeah.
That is your problem. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you didn't hire well. I cannot give you advice. I cannot tell you what your agent's doing wrong. I cannot tell you what the property is worth. I cannot help you while you're under contract with somebody else. And no, my time is not totally free. So the amount of folks that are reaching out to me right now saying, hey, here's the property I have listed, or I don't trust the advice I'm getting. If that relationship ends with that agent, then give me a call. But currently under contract, we are not allowed. I don't think the public understands we are not even allowed to do that under our license.
It's not that they're doing something horribly wrong, asking for additional second opinion, but like we're not allowed to give you advice. Did I tell you the one, Steve, that I had where someone reached out and said, full disclosure, I'm working with someone else. We like this property. Is a good investment. I'm like, I can't tell you anything at all. And what's funny is I had the same floor plan for sale in the building on another floor. And I'm like, good luck. I'm so sorry. I can't tell you anything. Like,
why aren't you buying mine? No, that one's terrible. Come buy this one.
Well, I wanted to say that, but I'm like, I'm staying out of this. Good luck. Go talk to your agent. But Steve, you've been doing this for 16 years, 17 years, maybe now. Of those years, where would this year 24 rank in general showings, offers, not just your team production, but general market?
It's much more the current market, not January, February, but the current market is much more 2012, 2013-ish, where sellers are asking too much. You're negotiating down. You're maybe renegotiating on inspection. You're doing all this different stuff, and it's a normal market. And the only thing now is it's really big numbers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was doing that before, a condo was $220 and a detached house might be $425.
Right.
And now, so back then, when the hot water tank came up, it was still $1,200 then, and it's $1,200 now to get it replaced or whatnot. Now my thought is, it's $1,200. Like, I actually think, like, I don't care if the seller or the buyer pays for it. It's such a small fractional amount of the overall investment that I can't believe we're talking about this. That would have been like going back in time and talking about doorknobs 16 years ago, right? Like, there's 3 loose doorknobs. Right? It's going to be $150 to replace those 3 door locks, right? Like,
funny, that happened to me last night. There's a little bit of coins.
Steve had it too, yeah.
On the AC, and then I put in our offer. It was a firm offer, but seller agrees to service the AC and furnace. So just service it, hire a technician, $100, and the seller crossed it out. And then my buyer was like, "No, I want it serviced," and I'm like, "No, just initial, like I'll do it." Okay.
But both of you guys, like this is such a, and right now in our market, the buyers have the ability to go, you know what? You don't want to service it? Peace. I'm going to go offer on the one down the street. I'm going to and so like you do have that ability. So right now I'm seeing options. The only trouble right now is when they do go offer on there's 3 more available down the street.
Yeah.
They're all asking $150,000 more. And those sellers are not willing to drop their price to where the price is that we have on this one. So do you want to service that AC for $500, or do you want to go offer 150 grand more down the street, because that's what it's going to take to get that property out of that seller's hands, because they're unrealistic on price?
Right. The seller actually, the agent signed my offer back, accepted, but then crossed that out with an initial. It's like, just use your initial. And I'm like, okay.
That's a move. That's a move.
That is not an accepted offer.
It's not accepted. Yeah.
Well, it would make it an accepted offer, but that clause would still be binding, right? So the crossed out wouldn't.
Right. Wouldn't have mattered. Yeah.
Wouldn't stand. Yeah. So if somebody accepts your offer, but then crosses something out with their initial, and you have,
and then that seller, or sorry, that listing agent. I mean, maybe they still have a hot property. Maybe they've underpriced it. There's all these different things they could do. But that selling agent right now, I think, is going, in a month and a half from now, when they realize how slow the market has gotten, they're not going to do stupid crap like that anymore. or at least they shouldn't. They should be like, listen, Mr. Seller, call in the guy. He's going to come service this thing. It's going to be $250 and you're going to get your home sold, as opposed to your 3 neighbors down the street that are still going to be on the market 90 days from now. By the way, 6-month listings, please. Agents do not.
Well, you know what? It was listed at 115,150,000. We gave them full ask firm. It was like everything they've been looking for. They kind of been on the sidelines, only seeing what they want. It's like, this is perfect. And like, give them full ask. Don't even go under if you want it. Because it was priced competitively. So there's that. Otherwise, we'd obviously try to negotiate. These ones in Burlington go in days. A lot of them go in multiple offers, to be honest. So then they go, okay, we're countering you at 1.2. And it's like,
oh, God.
It wasn't a bidding war either. It was a 48-hour irrevocable, and they're countering us. And I said, my buyers won't give you a nickel more, not even one nickel more. And I guess he had showed his seller my text message that made them accept it. But they're like, fine, we're accepting asking price. Fine, we're accepting your firm asking price offer, but no AC servicing here.
Can I do another public service announcement for real estate agents that listen? If you list a property at a price and it does not have an offer date and it's offers any time, you better be willing to accept that price. It is so crazy that they think that's a marketing tactic without an offer date that people are going to like just accept.
We're getting it constantly
it's wild.
Now.
Like just a terrible way to try to sell a property.
Yeah, we're getting
it. Piss people off.
Non-stop.
Like I've had buyers actually get so mad that they're like F those sellers and actually look for a different house because they like think that that's like a bad omen house. Like, like they're greedy, they're this. But it comes down to your advice too, because a lot of the times it's not the seller's decision.
So we're getting, Tom, we're getting those messages here. So we use a system called Touchbase where the realtors talk to each other behind the scenes. And we'll like say, hey, when's that? Can I show it at this time? Can I show it at that time? And a lot of the responses we're getting back are, absolutely, you can show it. Just so you know, here is my seller's expectation. And so sometimes it's like they won't take a penny under ask. Sometimes like we had one this week, it was listed at 1.25. They said, we will not look at anything below. And it was a lot higher number. And it's been on the market for 65 days.
Yeah, hilarious.
I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, well, this is what you got to do in order to get an offer. I'm like, well,
because the buyer will feel at that point, even if the value of the house is actually in fact higher than their list price, the buyer will feel like because there's no competition that they overpaid for no reason.
It's also not a market in that section of Steve's market because detach is slow. It's not a market you can play those silly games. Those silly games only work when there's not a lot on the market and the buyers have to play the games.
So my buyer wants to write 150 under on that property. Right. And then, I mean, this is, I guess, why they're doing it. They have an accepted offer now over their asking price. That agent couldn't tell me because it's not sold, but he's like, it is over. And he's like, for sure, this strategy is working. I'm like, well, after 65 days of doing this, though?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so we've all kind of clarified that the market is by no means crazy. We've seen much crazier markets, but you're getting showings and offers. It's just at a slower pace. Is that fair to say? Like that's not a crazy statement? Okay.
Well, Cortez, why don't you talk about our listing in Toronto? What's going on with that?
Yeah, please let me know.
Oh man, that one's a rough one. We did a flip. It was someone who was a flip. They brought me and Brooke in. We staged the whole thing. We said it was worth, this is a month ago, mind you. We said it was worth 2.1, 2.2 maybe. And you know the flippers, right? we want 2.4. And Brooke said the same thing. Okay, it will go there, but we have to revisit it in a couple weeks. If we're not sold in a couple weeks, let's revisit it. This is our price, but we're willing to try your price. We're going to stage it, do everything. So we had about 9 showings out the gate at 2.4.
Okay.
And I was like, that's not bad. Like, this is a month ago in Toronto, like Parkdale. Not the best area,
I've literally driven by that listing. I know what you're talking about.
You know the listing. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, let's talk offline. Maybe you can help us sell it. And then we go down to 2.1 and I'm like, now we're finally at a price where we can, hopefully get something going here. Right. And then we had 2 showings. It was like crickets. And we're like, why is it so dead?
Same listing though? You didn't relist at 2.1? Okay.
We relisted it. We canceled, relisted.
At 2.1. Okay.
At 2.1. And then we put a new photo up the front of the house where it's like the night shot. Nothing. 2 showings. 3 weeks go by. We had 300K. Like, we're giving out 3%. Like, it's we're doing everything we can. They're burning money. So we go, okay, let's do the hold offers thing. Let's go down to 1,799 because there was a house nearby that did the same thing. And let's just see what we can get. Like, I don't think we're getting up to 2.1 at this point. We had 1 showing.
So the more we dropped, the less showings we had.
The more we dropped, the less showings we had. And now it's like...
Do you think it's partly because, as you had said, just over the last 30 days, things have slowed anyways, or you might have just been unlucky at the times you did these things?
Well, I think because inventory's up 25% in a month. Yeah. So that's how fast things can change when you chase these numbers, and now we're chasing a falling knife.
And buyers, like, in terms of what buyers think they can do when they think, I'll just renovate it myself later when I have money. I'd rather get the deal now. I'll renovate it myself. They don't understand the cost of doing the heated floors and re-insulating the basement and waterproofing and all that. It's almost like, no, this is a way better deal because I'm going to pay for my own renovations, and nobody really knows how much that could add up quickly, but it's a crazy one, that one now. We're just like, oh my goodness.
So we all agree it's not a terrible market, but it's not a great market. Okay. And then what I've also seen, and tell me if I'm off on this for all of you, most of my people making moves are downsizing, upsizing, or getting money from family. Is that fair?
100%.
Okay.
A lot of it is get money from family.
All this is happening at still relatively expensive sale prices across our markets, right? When you look at just the history of pricing. At a Bank of Canada overnight rate of 5%, which means your variable is high 6s, and the fixed rate, if you're insured, is maybe 4.99. If you're uninsured, it's over 5, right?
Yeah.
So most of the market, and we've talked about this before, most of the market that's happening right now, people with equity in property from previously owning property are moving that money around. Yeah. I think Bank of Canada needs to cut, not for any of these people. They're good. They're having smaller mortgages that they're moving around. It's the first time home buyers are just, they're disappearing. And I'm telling you, because the lower end of the condo market that you'd think would be flying, the investors don't want them because the rates don't make sense. And the first time home buyers they're not qualifying under the stress test, so they don't have the down payment.
I just realized
suffering.
Let me jump in here. I just realized this is Tom trying to get here. None of us asked him what he thought was going to happen.
No. I was asking you
to touch on your point.
Yeah. What's your prediction for the Bank of Canada?
I said at my 2024 predictions video, they were going to cut in June, July, and December. So even though I don't maybe think they're going to cut in June anymore, I'm going to stick with what I said. I'm not going to change my mind. Sorry, Cortez, sorry to cut you off.
You're going to be close. To touch upon what you were saying, Tom, is I'm like, everyone always at a party wants to talk to me about real estate, obviously because of the podcast. And a lot more people are saying, I just don't care to buy. Like, I don't care about it anymore. I'm happy to, I rent my condo that I live in, like my primary. I own another one that I rent out, but the one that I rent out here. And the reason is the delta. Like, if I bought this condo today with condo fees, with taxes, it would run me like $5,500 a month. And this cost me $3,500 a month. So there's $2,000 right there where I can I can be liquid. Like, say I want to move somewhere, I want to go somewhere else. So I feel like home ownership for some people, especially in the condo market, isn't attractive anymore. it's not like you can get a $2,200 mortgage. Like to buy in Liberty Village, that would cost a 1-bedroom. What's that going to run you? $3,500 a month?
Yeah, at today's interest rates and 20% down, you're still 35. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can rent the same thing for 23, 24.
So the only way it would make sense is that if we get in at a price where I guess it relies on your prediction as well. Is it going to go up more than that $1,500 a month that you're paying per month? Like if you revisit the condo in 2 years, did paying that extra $1,500 make you money?
So that's $36,000 over the next 2 years, right? Did it go up that much in value?
Yeah, or more. Like you don't want to just have your money back. Did it go up $50,000 like minimum? Do you think, is your deal good enough where yes, you're paying higher in a mortgage right now, but it means to an end where now that $36,000 back in your pocket plus more and principal pay down. That's the only way that's gonna make sense.
Like Tom, would you buy a condo right now? I'd rather go to Hamilton and buy a duplex.
It depends. Would I buy a condo to live in or as an investment? Like if it is an investment question? I
guess do both.
If it was to live in, I'd consider it. If that's the money I had and I had a job in Toronto, my family was in Toronto, I'd consider it. If I was investing, no, I'd want to buy a freehold property right now.
Yeah.
That would be how I'd look at it.
I think that's where a lot of people are at.
But just the thing is, the condo used to be the way to get into the market, and then it would go up in value and it'd allow you to get to freehold. I couldn't afford to buy freehold properties when I started getting into real estate, so I bought condos. They allowed me to jump up, but it really depends on when you bought. Like we've been printing out these 10-year charts now for sellers when we're meeting with them and just showing them, here's when you bought, here's where the market's at now, and just drawing the line. And all the growth that they saw was 2015 to 2019. And then since then, condos went up and down, but the line across is the same. So the last 5 years of people that bought condos that are now coming up to mortgage renewals, their condos may be worth what they paid for it, and their mortgage is about to go up by $1,000, $1,500 a month. So it's just not what it was. Now, there may be a period of time that freehold prices get so far away, the gap is so big that condos start rebounding. And I actually do think a Bank of Canada cut could get condo listings off the market in a weird way. So the investors that are hurting with variable rates that have stuck this out, if these cuts start coming, they're like, all right, you know what? I don't have to sell this anymore. And taking that inventory off the market could allow things to start moving up again. But that's anybody's best guess. We're going a little bit long here, but I want to end with one final question. I know Brooke and Cortez, you're very much investment focused. In 2024, in this type of market where rates are at today, what are you looking for? Like when you're talking to people that have money to invest because they're slowly coming back, like what are they buying?
I do a lot of the duplexes because a lot of the buyers that I have aren't the seasoned investors. When they are seasoned investors, there's obviously tons of options down the line, but a lot of the people that want to invest in a Hamilton duplex, the Hamilton duplexes that, like I own 2 of them, right? At the peak, they're 1.2. I refinanced my money and I still broke even, but now it's back down to 700. Okay. So my same house I bought for 700 in 2019, appraised at 1.2 in the peak, right? And then now it's back down to 700. Will it go back there? I think yes. And since it has the 2 units, even after I refinance, so my mortgage is pretty high and similar to what you'd buy for now, right? My mortgage is around what you'd actually buy for. You can break even with the 2 rental incomes, right? So lock in at a price this low, like we're back down to 2019. So if you can rewind time and buy a duplex in 2019, would you? Most people would be like, oh yeah, right? If you can break even or even have $100, some of the numbers work out in Hamilton where you're actually on the cash flow positive side. While rates are so high, go variable. I mean, go fixed if, you don't want that, like uncertainty, but there's a lot of duplexes that break even. Mine break even after 2 refinances on both. And if we can make clients or investors kind of run zero right now while the purchase price is so low, then you're on the up for both cash flow and equity, like I was saying.
Are they moving into one of the units or are they renting out both?
Not always. Sometimes, yeah. Like that's how I did it, right? And that's what I try to teach first time buyers and investors. It's like, okay, we want to buy. Well, up your budget $100K. If you have the down payment for it, because the rental income down below is actually going to boost your pre-approval number. So upping your budget $100K is really only going to cost you that $20,000 in a down payment, because the basement rental income is going to help your pre-approval number. Now, all of a sudden, your mortgage is actually cut by more than if you only spent $600 versus $700 for a duplex. And when that $700K duplex does appreciate and go back to previous numbers, refinance your money, move out of that place, replace yourself with a tenant and break even after refinance. Now you have all of your money out of it, and now you have tenants paying down your mortgage, and your money's gone and in something else.
Brooke, you know what I like about you is that you're giving advice on things you've actually done. And that's not a lot of the real estate industry. Cortez, final words of wisdom before I'm going to leave it with Steve to end it off. I always do, but just before we wrap, any words of wisdom, anything you're seeing right now, any advice, anything?
I think if it depends on what you're chasing, right? Like, I think if you're chasing big alpha and you want to take a huge swing at stuff, look into AI, look into different things like that. If you want a more safer investment like real estate, I do a lot of private lending. I know Ron Butler was on your show talking about it. I think it's a great passive way. I don't have to worry about how many units or how many tenants are going to get in or anything or vacancies like that. I think it's a great option for some people if you have some cash on the side. But yeah, if you want to buy a duplex, me and Brooke run spreadsheets for people. Yep. And you got to get more than one unit. Like, we sold a triplex in St. Catharines. We sold a duplex in Brantford. Those are the only places where numbers really, truly make sense. So that's kind of my words of wisdom. Just, find something that you're interested in and you're willing to like put the time and effort into. And if you're watching this podcast, it's probably real estate.
Yeah,
and then make it happen. Yeah, get educated. Yep. Don't buy pre-con because you feel like standing in a line.
We could do another hour just on pre-con, but maybe we'll save it. We'll get you guys back on and do that.
No, this is it. Don't buy pre-con.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Thanks, Steve.
Over.
No, we'd love to come back on too.
Absolutely. So before I go to Steve to wrap things up, Canadian Real Estate Homefront podcast comes out what day every week? Is there a specific day?
God.
You guys just post it? Okay.
We just try to get we just try and get really busy with work, and then if we can find a day, we just do it.
Okay, cool. So go check out their YouTube channel.
Let me wrap this up, as opposed to our show posting every Sunday, and we know that Sunday is the best day for real estate.
It's our day. It's our day for real estate.
We won't post on Sundays.
Our day. If you post on
we
Sunday,
own
we will
Sunday.
crush you. Yeah, we will crush anyone that posts on Sunday. Just so
Got it.
I'm going to troll Steve's YouTube channel.
Don't worry. He's got enough. He's got enough on there.
I will troll you right back.
All right, guys. We'll put all your links for your podcast to reach out to both of you if people looking to invest in the West End of the GTA. Thank you so much for being here. If you made it to the end, thank you for listening and watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Awesome.
Okay, just one.